The year is 1628. A colossal ship, the Batavia, embarks on its maiden voyage. Part of the Dutch East India Company's mighty fleet, it sails towards the fabled Spice Islands, laden with an unimaginable fortune. Gold, silver, precious artifacts, a king's ransom destined for distant shores. But beneath the promise of prosperity, whispers of discontent begin to stir. A journey of immense wealth. Or was it? A testament to human ambition, yes. But also, a crucible for the darkest of desires. Aboard the Batavia, a man named Hieronymus Cornelis emerges from the shadows. An apothecary by trade, a manipulator by nature. He nurses grievances, feeds resentments among the crew. Against the backdrop of the vast, indifferent ocean, a sinister plot takes root. A mutiny in the making. But why? What drove this man to orchestrate such a betrayal? The signs were subtle, easily missed amidst the daily grind of sea life. Yet, a palpable tension began to hang heavy in the air. The ship's commander, Francisco Pelsaert, a seasoned merchant and skilled navigator, falls gravely ill. His authority wanes. His body weakens. A vulnerability, a void of leadership. And into this vacuum steps Cornelis, his malicious ambition now unchecked. The ship, once a symbol of order and discipline, now drifts towards an unseen precipice. A dangerous illness. A perilous journey. Little did Pelsaert know, the true storm was not brewing on the horizon, but within the very heart of his command. In the dead of night, on June 4, 1629, disaster strikes. The Batavia, guided by incompetence or malice, slams into the unseen coral reefs of the Houtman Abrolhos archipelago, off the desolate coast of Western Australia. A catastrophic error. A ship broken. The roaring waves, the splintering wood, the cries of the terrified crew. The maiden voyage ends in chaos, far from any familiar shore. A graveyard for ships. A sudden, violent embrace. What force truly led them to this watery grave? Survivors, some 300 souls, clamber onto tiny, barren islands. A temporary reprieve, they thought. But the islands offered little sustenance, no fresh water. Just searing sun and an unforgiving landscape. Pelsaert, recovering, makes a desperate decision: take a small longboat and seek help on the mainland, thousands of miles away. A fool's errand, some whispered. A captain abandoning his crew? Or a desperate gamble for survival? The odds stacked against them were immense. Hope, a fragile thing, clung to that tiny vessel. With Pelsaert gone, Cornelis reveals his true monstrous nature. He seizes absolute control. His mutineers, a small but ruthless faction, enforce his will with brutal efficiency. The islands transform from a refuge into a living hell. A twisted kingdom built on fear and sadism. The very fabric of humanity began to unravel under his insidious influence. What dark fantasies did he harbor? What depths of depravity would he plunge to, now free from moral restraint? The horrors began. Systematic murder, starvation, sexual assault. Those deemed useless or a threat to Cornelis' power were swiftly eliminated. Women were enslaved, brutalized. The islands became a stage for unimaginable cruelty. A chilling descent into depravity, far from the reach of civilization. The screams of the dying, the silent terror of the living. How many perished? How much suffering can the human spirit endure before it breaks? The very essence of hope seemed to drain away with each passing day. Not all succumbed. On a separate island, a small group of soldiers, led by a steadfast corporal named Weeb Hayes, had been left by Pelsaert to search for water. When they learned of Cornelis' atrocities, they fortified their position, creating makeshift defenses. A beacon of defiance against the encroaching darkness. A desperate stand. Armed with what little they could salvage, they prepared for battle. What motivated this courageous few to resist, when so many others had fallen victim to despair? Cornelis and his mutineers, enraged by this unexpected resistance, launched attacks against Hayes' small camp. Primitive skirmishes on a desolate shore. Swords against crude spears, muskets against stones. Each skirmish was a desperate struggle for survival, a testament to the human will to live. The tide of terror met a wall of resilience. Could a handful of determined men truly stand against the organized cruelty of the mutineers? The fate of all remaining survivors hung in the balance. After an agonizing 33-day journey, against all odds, Pelsaert reached Batavia, modern-day Jakarta, and secured a rescue ship. He returned to the Abrolhos, unaware of the full extent of the horror that had unfolded. What greeted him was not a grateful, beleaguered crew, but a scene of utter depravity and open warfare. A commander returning to find his ship destroyed, his crew decimated, and a madman ruling a blood-soaked kingdom. His initial relief must have been quickly replaced by utter horror. Pelsaert's arrival dramatically shifted the balance of power. He quickly learned of Cornwallis' atrocities from Lieb Hayes. A final, decisive battle erupted. The mutineers, caught between Hayes' loyalists and Pelsaert's newly arrived armed men, were swiftly overwhelmed. The tyrannical reign was brought to an abrupt and violent end. But the damage was already done. The scars ran deep. The final confrontation was swift, but the shadow of the mutiny would linger for centuries. The true cost of the Batavia mutiny was staggering. Of the original 341 people on board, approximately 125 had died during the shipwreck or in the immediate aftermath. But under Cornwallis' reign of terror, another 110 to 120 men, women, and children were systematically murdered. Only 122 survivors remained to tell the tale. A brutal tally of human depravity and resilience. The numbers speak volumes. A horror almost incomprehensible. So many lives extinguished, not by the sea, but by fellow humans. Pelsaert, acting as judge and executioner, convened an immediate trial on the islands. Without the niceties of formal courts, evidence was gathered, testimonies heard. The guilty faced swift, brutal justice. Many were tortured to confess. Some were hanged. Others marooned. A stark, uncompromising retribution for crimes beyond comprehension. Was this true justice, or another form of barbarism, born of desperation and trauma? The urgency of the situation demanded immediate and definitive action. Geronimus Cornwallis, the architect of this horrific tragedy, received his due. After intense interrogation and confession, he was found guilty of mutiny and murder. Along with several of his chief conspirators, he was publicly hanged on the very islands where he had unleashed such terror. A chilling end for a chilling figure. But did his death truly bring closure? Or did his malevolent spirit linger, a dark stain on the history of those remote, sun-baked islands? A brutal lesson in maritime law. Not every detail of the Batavia mutiny is fully understood. Questions remain about the full extent of the conspiracy, the exact motives, the precise number of victims. The remote nature of the location, the passage of time, and the self-serving accounts of some survivors leave gaps in the historical record. A puzzle with missing pieces. A haunting echo from the past. What untold stories did the wind carry across those islands? What secrets lie buried beneath the shifting sands and turquoise waters? The Batavia mutiny sent shockwaves through the Dutch East India Company and beyond. It underscored the absolute necessity for strict discipline, clear lines of command, and robust justice at sea. It became a chilling cautionary tale, influencing maritime law and the treatment of crews for centuries to come. The horror of the islands forced a re-evaluation of command, loyalty, and the very concept of justice far from civilization. A brutal lesson, etched into the annals of seafaring history. Its shadow reached far beyond the remote Abrolhos. Today, the wreck of the Batavia lies beneath the waves, a silent tomb. The Houtman Abrolhos Islands, once a stage for unimaginable horror, are now a protected nature reserve. But the memory of what transpired there endures. A testament to human depravity, yes. but also to the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit. The whispers of the past still echo across those barren lands, a perpetual reminder of a dark chapter in maritime history. The forgotten shipwreck. The unforgettable mutiny. A legacy of terror and of justice.